the Bible says that we need to be obedient. That's the difference in life. Now, how do you teach your kids to be obedient? So that's what I want to do. Slap, 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 you know, and I'm going to straighten you out, and you're going to do this, and I'm going to ground you for 6 months. Is that the way it is? Well, that's modifying behavior, but that's not modifying the heart. And so in order to get your children to obey you and then obey the Lord, love has to be involved. Because your children, even when you discipline them, are not going to respond well to that discipline unless they want to please you. And so we see in verse 5 the key. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. In order to obey God, you have to love him. Jesus picks up this whole idea in the New Testament when someone asked him, what are the greatest commandments? He said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And then the second one is like the first, love your neighbor as yourself. He said, all the commandments are involved in these. The first 4 have to do with loving God. The last 6 having to do with loving your fellow man. And so right here, the book of Deuteronomy, all of it just centers around this one verse. You are to love God. Everything beforehand builds up to this, and everything after that just describes this and modifies it. He says you are to love the Lord your God with all your heart, because without love in your heart, you're not going to be affected without the emotion, without the passion. And you know that. I mean, some of you parents here, and one of your biggest fears in life is that one day your son or daughter is going to come home with someone that they're dating that's on, the wrong kind of person. You know, they're going to take your son or daughter away from the faith. They're going to take your son or daughter away from you. They're going to take your son or daughter away down maybe a path that they don't need to go. That's a fear of yours, because you know that young lady that falls in love with that guy, I mean, the world just revolves around him. You know, got to call him all the time, text him all the time, you know, email him all the time, I mean, whatever you're doing these days, you know. And the guy's the same way. His whole life now begins to revolve around that young lady. Why? Because their emotions now are involved. They love one another and they put one another first. And so without loving God, obedience is not going to come. So again, I ask you the question about your interests, your schedule, your time, how you spend your money. What does it say to your kids about your love? Not only your love for God, but your love for your wife, your love for them. You see, fear in the Old Testament was so great that they would behave differently because of the fear. In the New Testament, our love is to be so deep that we are afraid we will hurt God, not that God will hurt us. But Jesus said, if you love me, keep my commandments. How do you show your love toward God? You obey him.